It's official, Sri Lanka is broke. Sri Lankans rang in the Sinhala and Tamil New Year knowing that their country is in a disastrous financial crisis. They also know that solution seems to be elusive. But thankfully, out of the spotlight, there are people working tirelessly to get us out of this crisis. The real unsung heroes, not the jokers who hold placards at the beach festival at Golface. They are the disruptors, insinuators, and the hijackers of the real voice of the people. Going to the Golface green and taking part in the beach festival is a trend these days now. Based on the high number of singers, actors, sportsmen, dancers, anyone who's trying to find some kind of a clout by visiting that place. You can see that evidently. These days, you watch the news, a lot of celebrities are going to that particular place because that's the place where there is so much of recognition. You can be part of the trend right now. I will tell you, if the actors, the dancers, the sportsmen, and everybody is showing up for a call, sorry buddy, I got bad news. That isn't the fight's real place. Well, given that we passed a holiday week, a much needed one at that, to take a breather from the hectic position we are in as a nation right now. Tonight, my objective is to find some order in this chaos, I hope that the law enforcement officials will be doing in certain parts of this country to ensure that we don't break out to full-blown anarchy. But let's revisit that thought a little bit later. The week began last week with the talk of default, aka we don't have money, which spread like wildfire in international media. Sri Lanka is broke. And of course, this situation is not supported by the Golface Beach Festival. Now, don't get me wrong, our message has been clear from the beginning. We said that there was a real voice of the people from the grassroots level stemming from the supply chain crisis that led to policy change from the ruling government. But unfortunately, that voice was hijacked halfway through by people who saw the opportunity to launch their nefarious agendas. I'll get to that in a moment. Now, protesting is everyone's right, especially in circumstances such as this one, where people are struggling to make ends meet. But using the people's pain for a separate political agenda is quite different and unethical. This was captured quite well by our Prime Minister.
මිත්‍රෝනි මේ රටේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී පාලන ව්‍යුහය කඩා බිඳ නොදමෙන විදියේ තීන්දුවක් ගැනීම ජනතා පරමාධිපත්‍ය ලබාගත් අපේ වගකීමයි වන්නේ. ඒ අරමුණ ඇතුව පමණයි අපි වැඩ කරගෙන යන්නේ. මතක තියාගන්න. අහිමි වීන වගේම අත්හැරීමත් දේශපාලනයේ අපිට හොඳට පුරුදුයි. මිත්‍රවරුනි පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ 225ම එපා කියන සටන් පාටි දැන් ඇහෙනවා. එයින් අදහස් කරන්නේ මේ ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී ක්‍රමයේ ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කිරීම නම් ඒ භයානකම ඉතිහාසය දිහා බලලා තේරුම් ගන්න ඕන. පාර්ලිමේන්තුවට බෝම්බ ගහලා මුළු පාර්ලිමේන්තුවම විනාශ කරන්න හැදීමෙන් උණු විපත අපි දැසින් දැක්කා. එදා පාර්ලිමේන්තු ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදී ප්‍රතික්ෂේප කරපු නිසා පාරවල් දිගේ තරුණලී ගලා ගිය හැටි අපි දැක්කා.
It breaks my heart to see how much is asked by the Prime Minister to do for his country after literally providing the leadership to free this nation from the clutches of terrorism. So yeah, go ahead, scream at the television saying bootlicker. But my view is against the tide. Look at this man. A frail-looking individual, in pain of course, coming to the podium and desperately trying to tell the country that they must not let this go down the drain. Ask yourself this question, why did he have to do this? Nobody called him to do it. He could have easily stayed at home without bothering with any of this. It looks so lousy image-wise, right? I'm sure his PR team would have advised against it. But the very reason for this man to drag his tired self to the podium, to somehow to provide a bit of leadership that's lacking in the country right now is unfathomable. It's shameful that his brother, our president, is cooped up like a coward, surrounded by all the military and law enforcement agencies near his presidential palace and not being bothered to come out to calm a nation that's looking for leadership. No, sending media release after media release saying that we are working on this and that isn't going to help. What's going to help is you, Mr. President, in the midst of the people, telling them you are doing your level best by yourself to get everything on track. That's why there's so much anger amongst the people. Their leader, whom they elected, doesn't even seem to care. And right now, a man who has done his job for this country said that he was going to end the war, and he finished it and did his part for this nation. Yet that man is being once again dragged to the limelight because we can't seem to find leadership. This is how we treat our past leaders. Then we call our nation Utumma Rata. In observing this situation for quite some time, I believe that we no longer need managers. We need engineers. We do not need orators. We need workers. We need people willing to keep their noses to the grind and get the job done. I'm sorry to say that building mobile toilets in front of the presidential secretariat will not achieve this. That's not the engineering this country needs right now. Both local and international media are quick to say this is the worst economic crisis Sri Lanka has gone through. This is the absolute worst, this and that. But what is the comparative? Where is the comparative? It's not only Sri Lanka that's undergoing this crisis, the whole world is. However, they were prudent enough to keep a cushion underneath them financially, which would help them to weather the crisis. On the other hand, in Sri Lanka, the previous administration did their job, screwing everything, and now trying to portray themselves as angels. I understand most Sri Lankans have amnesia, but I don't. Let's leave the numbers aside for a while because it is highly dependent on the state of the world economy. But let's just think about the social climate that this country has faced in the past. Terrorism, floods on a yearly basis, famines, a tsunami, economic crises, political unrest, and many, many more. We've gone through all that. So yes, this is a terrible period. But dealing with these universal extremes is not going to help. And I demand you to think twice before listening to an 18-year-old who portrayed themselves as a keyboard hero and a person who can't even find his undergarments without the help of his mother, or a liberal-leaning, narrow-minded individual tells you that this is the worst. So Mahieash, is this your entire build-up to tell us that it could be worse, that we should be okay with everything? Absolutely not. When this President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, took an oath, individuals like me who represented the nationalistic and conservative camp believed that our country finally found a leader who would take this country to stand toe-to-toe with the likes of South Korea and Singapore and the rest of the world. But unfortunately, though our faith in the current leadership has taken a massive hit due to the president not acting as he promised, the aspiration has not. As someone who has seen crises firsthand, be it in my humanitarian work days or at least as a citizen of this country, I can say with some integrity that we can get ourselves out of this situation. It is certainly not listening to the cardboard heroes at the Golf Face Beach Festival, but taking a deep look at history. I have heard the phrase, when you banish the dragons, you banish the heroes, which says that the tough times creates the best solutions and opportunities. This has been the case in almost every other country and potentially every successful business or large-scale enterprise still, even here in Sri Lanka today. But it is not the story of Sri Lanka as of now. The story of Sri Lanka is unfortunately not a unified one. It is not one where all of us see that there is a better quality of life that this country could offer to its citizens. It does not say that Sri Lanka is a formidable force in the next era of technological evolution. And it is not even one that says that this country should be safe from terrorism. I mean, listen to this buffoon having his 15 minutes of fame at the Golf Face Beach Festival after hammering a couple of drinks or smoking some really good mind-cooking weed. The story of Sri Lanka is about individual success at all costs and rallying in unison. We literally managed to name a landmass, which I don't even want to say on air to provide even a tiny bit of publicity, against an individual who managed to give access to all landmass in the country. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the sick one because I suffer from this disease called memory. Anyway, the main point I want to get across on tonight's State of the Nation is a bit of a throwback to a series of programs we did a few months back on my other program, Gatriel, which ran on the theme of resetting the mindset of Sri Lankans. We need to make an active effort to literally stop making past mistakes. As the saying goes, the one who best describes the problems often has the best solutions. We should take a long look at our behaviors as Sri Lankans. The bitter truth is that we are behind. We have been left behind for so long while other countries are pulling ahead every passing second. We need to reverse this toxic cycle of blaming one another and hoping for government incentives. The colonial rulers taught us how to beg. And today, after 73 years, that's all what we know how to do. We as a country need to get to work. Every facet of this nation, be it tourism to manufacturing, can and will be affected by how individuals make their choices. So if we can't agree on a political vision, let's at least agree on where we want to head as a nation. Because we literally cannot afford to play this game any longer. Going around in circles and not remembering that we did this already and applying the same wrong solutions cannot get us to the promised land. We have to change our tactics, change our thinking, and more importantly, change our attitude towards this nation. If you think every other country is better than Sri Lanka, then by all means, please leave, because you are no worth to the future of this nation. You have given up. But if you think we can salvage this, get this to where we really want, then put your heart and soul into rectifying the errors. And no, when Sri Lanka doesn't have dollars in its account and then you think protesting will solve the problem, I'm sorry to say that buffoonery is what screwed us all along. You want Gora to go home? Here's former Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. For some, he's an hero. And for some, an intellectual leader. For some, the only one who has a solution for this crisis. Let him provide the answer to all you clowns calling for the president to go home.
Mr. Wickremesinghe, the public is calling for the Rajapaksa brothers all to remove themselves from politics. Would it also not be a good time for you to step down from leadership of the UNP? The last election that you lost was also on the back of poor economic performance. Isn't it time for new leadership across the board in Sri Lanka to take the country into the next era?
Look, a lot of people are looking at the proposals I am giving. If you want me to go, I will go. But you're the 4,000 miles away and I'm here on spot.
Well, I'm just wondering, after the last election, would it not have been sensible?
So I give you an answer to that. You want to be hard, I will also be hard. Shall we?
Well, I'm just wondering what your plans are. Because
you want some news, so I'm giving you news. I'm giving a hard answer, I can give you a hard one.
Sorry, what was your hard answer again?
My hard answer is you're out there 4,000 miles away. I am here. And I know what is the situation changes and the people, my proposals in Parliament have been accepted outside. And I'm trying to implement it without going to without asking for any government position. I've spoken with the World Bank. I've spoken with India. I'm speaking with the government and the opposition. You want me to go? No, I'll go. But you first put that proposal. The CNBC says this. If you want, I put it to the people of Sri Lanka. And
this is not a proposal from CNBC, Mr. Wickremesinghe.
You're out there talking to the English-speaking community. The people out there, Single and Tamil-speaking. Come up here. Don't try to do your news from there. Come here and then ask me the question.
So your answer then is that your answer then is that Sri Lanka is not ready for new leadership.
Okay. I am saying that you're talking nonsense. That's all. Okay.
As I have overwhelmingly suggested within this program, Sri Lankans need to get to work and have a personal vision that is not about daily self-sufficiency.
අපි ගන්න පියවර අපි ගන්නවා ඇත්තම ලොකු විශ්වාසයක් දාවට ඒක පුළුවන් කියලා. නමුත් ඒක කරනකොට ජනතාවට කියන්න ඕන මේ අපි කරන වැඩපිළිවෙලේ ප්‍රතිඵලය මේ තත්ත්වයට වඩා තවත් අමාරු තත්ත්වයකට ගිහිල්ලා තමයි අනිත් පැත්තට හරව ගන්න පුළුවන්. මොකද නැත්තම් අනවශ්‍ය බලාපොරොත්තු දීලා අපි ඇවිල්ලා අලුතෙන් වැඩපිළිවෙලක් අරගෙන ආවත් මේක එක්සරේ කරන්න පුළුවන් දෙයක් නෙමෙයි.
I believe it's not about saying Gota go home, but rather Gota get to work. Let's take a short commercial break. On the other side, we will talk about the remedy for this government for this current economic crisis, the IMF bailout. We'll be right back.